of a civilization that is over 5,000 years old, a nation where traditions coexist with modern society.
வீடியோ ப்ளே பண்ணியாச்சுல?
As early as in 5th century AD, Aryabhatta, the mathematical genius, invented zero that revolutionized mathematics. In Egyptology, this symbolizes universal knowledge. This represents power. This depicts integrity inherent in humankind. While the country moves ahead towards prosperity and progression.
It gives me such delight to greet you all a very good evening and to successfully step into the finale of the conference.
3 wonderful days of learning behind us. I, CA Swarnaprada, with my co-host CA Subhashni, welcome you to on behalf of SARC of ICAI to the 4th day of this 52nd regional conference titled Sigaram Breakthrough to Excellence.
We are all aware of the fact that this conference is one of its kind, a grand one, despite the fact that we are gripped by the pandemic. Stay tuned with us for a happy learning and network with your friends and colleagues from the fraternity virtually. Also, we have exciting Branch and Sikasa awards lined up for the later.
We also have a lucky dip today for members who are signed in till the end, so don't miss out and stay tuned. But without further ado, let's all stand for the ICAI motto song.
य एष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति य एष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति कामं 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 कामंशो पुरुषो निर्विमाणः निर्विमाणः तदेव शुक्रं तद्ब्रह्मा तद्ब्रह्मा तदेवामृतमुच्यते तस्मिन् लोकः शतः सर्वे तदूनात्यपि कश्चन एतद्द्वैता 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 एतद्द्वैता.
Thank you. May I now request our Chairman SIRC, CA Dungar Chand Yu Jain, to give his welcome address.
I welcome you all to the day 4 of Sigaram, the 52nd Regional Conference of SARC of ICAI. In fact, I would only like to today touch upon the CP, the Continuing Professional Education, a wonderful tool which our institute has given, just not only for the updation of the knowledge, but also for the fellowship. When I just look back all these years from the day I passed my CA, it's thanks to this CP where I was able to kind of know a lot of people, and it came with a lot of knowledge gaining as well. And this year, for all good reasons or bad, it is happening virtually. So we are kind of still seen to it that the lockdown has not knocked us down, but we are continuing the saga of learning. I still recall when we planned this conference, we thought of going for a referencer. First, we thought we'll go for a print. But when I took the 2017 referencer and referred, I saw that those materials got outdated in a span of 3-4 months. So a change of thought came that let's kind of go for e-referencer so that we are able to constantly update. And whenever somebody access things, he's able to get access to the latest and live information rather than the stale one. So we changed the referencer format from a book format to the e-referencer so that members are immensely benefited. And the very important thing about the CP and the learning is you have to kind of get equipped to learn unlearn and relearn. It's just not learning and then stopping it, but doing all the three together so that we are kind of ahead and knowing all things which are happening around us. And I would only like to start the day with the quote of CA YH Malegamji, who has said that important thing for a profession is not the brilliance of the few. He says important thing for a profession is not the brilliance of the few, but the competence of many. I'm very sure these conferences, the one including today, Sigaram, will kind of see that lot many people of our members get competent enough, just not brilliant. Thank you. Wish you all happy learning.
So for the first technical session, we have with us CA Sundar Rajan, Regional Council Member, CA Babu Abraham Kalivailil, Central Council Member, Srimati Padmaja Chundru with us here. We welcome all of you and thank you for taking time to be with us today.
May I now request CA Babu Abraham Kalivailil, Central Council Member, to give a special address.
Distinguished Chairman of the Southern India Regional Council of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, and my good friend Dungat Chand Jain, the pride of the banking industry in the country and the speaker of the day, Srimati Padmaja Chundru. It's a matter of great honor that the Lord Lady Chairperson, MD and CEO of public sector banks in the country has joined as a speaker to enlighten us on our role, or chartered accountants' role in the banking industry. I think she has been handling the banking industry and more particularly the auditors as the CEO of the bank. Therefore, definitely she has a hands-on experience on handling that. And she has been very ably merged the Allahabad Bank with Indian Bank. And it's a great matter of compliment that Indian Bank today has one of the lowest NPA levels among all banks in the country, and one of the highest profitability. And with that, I think more than 6,000 branches spread across the country, is one among the top 10 banks in the country. It's a great honor, madam, to have you with us. And I'm sure I'll just have a glance because madam is going to enlighten us on this topic. The banking sector in India is one of the largest in the world as far as the extensive network of branches is concerned, and is the backbone of our economy. The banking sector is also critical as it deals with mammoth amounts of public monies and is highly sensitive to reputational risk. Over the years, the sector has been through a long journey and has also achieved new heights with the changing times. The widespread use of technology has completely changed the working of the banks, resulting in lesser requirement for people to visit banks physically. Nevertheless, the fundamental aspect of banking, that is trust and confidence of people on banking sector, remains the same. The trust and confidence come on the back of a strong regulatory system, quality of audit system, and practices in India. For financial stability in the economy, it is essential that the banking sector stays healthy, safe, and sound. Towards this, one of the most important factors is reliable audited financial information. Audit of banks involves number of peculiarities. For example, huge volume and complexity of transactions in bank, wide geographical spread of banks network, large range of products and services offered by banks, extensive use of technology in banks, oversight by the banking regulator, and besides that, probably one of the shortest span to complete the audit for the auditors. All these factors make the task of the bank auditors quite challenging in doing the audits. The global COVID-19 pandemic has emerged as a black swan event which is going to require extraordinary measures from governments across the globe to help resume economic stability. The pandemic is impacting the banking sector in multiple ways, from business continuity issues and operational considerations to overall financial outlook. The disruptions led by the COVID pandemic has further deteriorated the health of the banking industry in the country, which was already reeling under severe stress in the previous years. According to CARE ratings, India's NPA ratio is one of the highest among comparable countries, and further, it is expected to reach 11 to 11.5% by the end of current fiscal year 2021. The financial year 21 gross NPA numbers would more significantly ahead from the current 8.5% level, but would be lower due to the one-time restructuring scheme. However, it is estimated that the additions to the gross NPAs would primarily take place from the SMA-1 and SMA-2 corporate loans under moratorium and not eligible for restructuring. A stress test conducted by the Reserve Bank of India covering 53 scheduled commercial banks suggests that COVID-19 crisis could push Indian banks' broad bad loans to their highest level in 2 decades. Pressures from the pandemic and the nationwide lockdown are likely to significantly push up bad loans from the banking sector, according to the RBI's Financial Stability Report for July 2020. In a very severe stress scenario, the gross NPA of the banking sector could rise to as high as 14.7% of total loans by March 2021, the RBI FSR stated. Under the baseline scenario, the gross NPA ratio could raise to 12.5%, the RBI stress test showed. Even though the moratorium period has been extended for 6 months ending August 2020, there are still high chances of large slippage in asset quality of banks. Considering this fact, the role of auditors at times like this stands more pronounced. The auditors shall exercise a very high degree of skepticism and work in accordance with the professional standards and ethical requirements. Under the current circumstances, auditors must recognize that the manner in which they conduct the audit in the past may need significant modification to address the challenges and uncertainties arising out of the impact of COVID-19. Further, the impact of COVID-19 on business would be very significant and could put more pressures on management to meet performance targets or market expectations. This raises the risk of likelihood of manipulations in the financial statements to a higher level, which requires the auditors to exercise a much higher degree of skepticism and carry out extended audit procedures to eliminate the possibility of fraud and material errors in the financial statements. Moreover, the branch audit of banks should not be considered as an annual ritual. The reason being, unless a discrepancy is found and reported at the lower level, there is a minor chance that the same would be reported at the central auditor's level. As a central statutory auditor, I have been fortunate to be a central statutory auditor, and I'm honestly telling you, this is my experience. If the branch auditor doesn't come out with what is required to be reported or to be classified as an NPA, it will be very difficult at the central auditor's level or even for the management sitting at the corporate office. By exercising the necessary precautions, we will be able to identify early signals of delinquency in the banking sector so as to prevent their materialization. By conducting quality audit of financial statements of bank, the auditors will be playing an important role in building a resilient banking sector in the country, and it will be a great service to the banks as well as to the nation. With this, I am extremely glad and proud that I am part of the 52nd regional conference, which has shown highest number of participants, despite being the first virtual regional conference. My compliments to the very brilliant chairman of the Southern region, DC Jain, who has been steering the region in an extraordinary manner, despite an extraordinary situation. My compliments, and I'm very, very glad that Honorable Chairman of the MD and CEO of the Indian Bank is with us to address us today. Thank you very much.
For your time and effort that has gone into giving us such a great information. We also thank you on behalf of our chairman for your compliment. So now may I request C.S. Sundararajan, Regional Council Member, to give the speaker introduction. followed by e-felicitation of the speaker.
Respected Tech Savvy CA DC Jain sir, Chairman of SIRC of ICI, respected CA Babu Abraham sir, Central Council Member of ICI, respected Srimati Padmaja Chandru, Managing Director and CEO of IndiBank, respected member of our profession. Namaskar. செலவு வைத்து வளர்த்த மொழியாம் தமிழ் அதன் தலைமையகமாம் இம்மதுரையில் நம் போன்று மக்கள் மட்டும் அல்லாத இறைவனும் பல்லாண்டு வாழ்க என துதி பாடிய பெரியாழ்வார் பிறந்த இத்தமிழ் மண்ணில் மிகச் சிறப்பான இக்கூட்டத்தை நடத்தியதற்கு என் வாழ்த்துக்கள். மேலும் இயற்கை நாடகம் என முத்தமிழுக்கு இவ்வரங்கில் ஒரு குழு அமைத்து என்டர்டைன்மெண்ட் கமிட்டி அதற்கு என்னை சேர்மனும் ஆக்கியதற்கு என் நன்றி. Although I thank all participants, all being professionals and SIRC officials who supported and made it a successful program. The conference is so well organized by Chairman of SIRC, in which our Finance Minister emphasized in importance of women. And in this context, it is apt to invite our today's speaker, Srimati Padmaja Chandru. Madam, I introduce you from now. Mrs. Padmaja Chandru is MD and CEO of Indian Bank since September 2018 after 34 years of SBI. At Indian Bank, Mrs. Padmaja has successfully spearheaded the amalgamation of Harvard Bank into Indian Bank amid the COVID challenges. With the merger, Indian Bank doubled in balance sheet, size and net worth. Today, is among the top 10 banks in the country with 6,000 branches, more than 40,000 employees, and business of more than 8.5 trillion. Post-merger, the bank has quickly moved to re-establish itself as one of the strongest banks in terms of growth, profitability, and capital strength. As Deputy Managing Director, SBI, she headed the digital banking vertical. She was head US for SBI in New York from 2014 to 2017, overseeing strategic planning, business growth, risk management, and compliances. She was involved in critical discussions with US regulators on banks' operation in the US and were successful in placing the US operations on a steady growth plan. She is postgraduate in commerce from Andhra University. Mrs. Padmaja joined SBI in 1984 as a probationary officer. In a career spanning more than 3 decades, with postings in India and abroad, she gained rich experience in corporate lending and credit management, retail operations and digital banking, treasury and international operations. Mrs. Padmaja is a member on the board of Life Insurance Corporation and the managing committee of Indian Banks Association. She is also on the board of governors of Madras School of Economics and was part of the high-level committee constituted by the Tamil Nadu government to combat the COVID crisis. She is non-executive chairman of the Universe Sampo General Insurance Company Limited and member in the governing body of IBPS and NIBM. She is also a member in the Insurance Advisory Committee of IRDA. As a loyal customer of your bank, madam, since my articleship days, I take this opportunity to thank your bank for making me to this level. We thank you for accepting the invitation to be a speaker of this conference. I introduce you to this, madam. I welcome you to this program, madam. Thank you all. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir, for your lovely introduction. We have the speaker e-felicitation now.
much. This is the first e-felicitation I received. Actually, I saw also. Only the IIT convocations I was watching, But thank you very much. That shows you are already marched into excellence. I mean, it's not a breakthrough anymore. I think it's very, very nice to see that. So again, thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Shri T.C. Jain, Shri Babu Abraham, Shri Sundarajan, our very loyal customer, and I'm sure there are many more in the audience. And my warmest regards to the members of the elite fraternity of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. I have always been a part of, as I say, of the audit process, both in SBI and in Indian Bank. My initial reaction to auditors, whether it was from SBI as a branch manager in SBI, one of the rural or semi-urban branches, as a very young officer heading a branch, it was always a trepidation that why are these chaps coming and what will they see and what will they write and what will our bosses think? So all kinds of apprehensions. But the more and more we had interaction with them, it became very clear that both of us are actually on the same side. And it ignited my interest in audit. Then I later on in my career, I also worked in the inspection and audit department of SBI. And we used to look at audit reports of not only the large Indian branches, but also foreign branches. And that gave an insight into the regulatory practices in banking sphere across the globe. That one thing led to another, and I was posted in Los Angeles branch of SBI, where again we had this interaction with regulators. That was for 4.5 years. I learned a lot during that process. Back in India, I was in the large corporate or mid corporate and mostly in the lending side. That led to again another posting in the US, which was heading the US operations. And why I'm giving my career graph is because at every stage we had an interaction with auditors and auditors at a higher and higher level. Especially from the corporate accounts group, we almost interacted with the central statutory auditors of SBI. And there was a lot of fireworks, there was a lot of sparks flying. But it was a great learning because every account that we had some negotiations on, we also learned a lot in the process. In the US, I again saw the difference between the way RBI handles audits and how FRB or FDIC or whichever New York State or whichever regulator, the way they handle the audits and the way we look at things. That said, I think I should start at the beginning. I'm always a great admirer of the Chartered Accountant community of India. Some of the best brains that have shaped the country are from this community. Today, we have luminaries in all spheres, whether it's banking, politics, big investors, even in the IT sector, who are all members of this institute. These stalwarts are playing a key role in shaping the economy and society. The Honorable Prime Minister spelled out his expectations from the CA community, saying, like the lawyers did during the freedom struggle, I urge the CAs to take the lead in the journey towards India's economic growth. Since the inception of ICAI way back in 1949, the Institute has always made steady progress. The Chartered Accountants have made significant contributions in drafting several acts, regulations. They gave suggestions on the budget fronts. They also talked about allocations and appropriations, encompassing the whole gamut of financial economy. In a fast evolving financial market, the role of CAs also kept on changing rapidly, and it started expanding. Starting from the audit of books in the initial days when the ICAI was founded, the role expanded into so many other areas. They started advising on the capital structure, on taxation, on economic planning, also into complex areas like GST audit or the CAG and the forensic audit, the income tax, global taxation impact, double taxation reliefs, the FEMA advisory, to name a few. Especially, I think in the last few years, the CS role has further expanded into insolvency-related consultancy, share evaluations, mergers and acquisitions, the valuations, and structuring entry strategies for overseas companies or the foreign institutional investors. The share evaluation and the financial modeling, risk assessment and management, I think I can go on reeling out these things. I don't think there's any, any area of economy and banking which the chartered accountants are not involved today. So with all this big role that they are playing in all the sectors, I think the banker and the auditor have an equal role to play. We are mutually dependent. We are partners in the growth of the economy. I have frequent interactions with our statutory central auditors and the various audit firms across the country that carry out our bank audit. I find that apart from validating the books of accounts, the auditors really add value through their suggestions on plugging the weak links, updating us on latest developments in finance and regulatory fields, etc. Like Shri Babu Abraham was saying, it is not just the accounting of the branch. I think at the lower level also, auditors are playing a great role in actually helping our officers upskill themselves or understand why things have to be done in a certain way. Given the need for such training and such upskilling at our branches, I think this is a very valuable input from the auditors that is coming into banks. Their analytical thinking, the knowledge of best practices, they audit a lot of banks and other organizations. So the critical understanding that they get of the whole bank, they are also of immense help in making our own SWOT analysis. I have very free, as I mentioned, our audit committee is headed by a chartered accountant again, as per regulations, and the kind of value addition that happens because of his qualification and because of what you mentioned, the continuing professional evaluation, CPE, I think this is a very valuable input. No other, I think, at least in banking, we have some exams, but it is not mandatory. So, somewhere down the line that obsolescence can set in. But here there is a continuous updation. And so we find a lot of value from the ACB members and also the auditors who discuss and make presentations to the audit committee and the board very regularly every quarter and also in between if required. These give our auditors a very unbiased view of the bank. The management may say anything about our performance, but only when the auditor validates it do the directors really get the comfort. The Reserve Bank of India on its part has been raising its expectations from the auditors. Now even RBI officials have frequent meetings with our auditors to assure themselves of the state of affairs at the bank. In fact, the auditors, I think, have a very tough role to play. They are almost, working hand in hand with the bank in auditing our quarterly financials. They know how the bank is progressing on various issues. They know what the bank is doing. On the other hand, they also have to give that comfort to the RBI that all the accounting norms and auditing principles are being followed. RBI follows a rule-based approach for supervision. As far as I can see, there are certain rules, and on the basis of which the auditors carry out the audit of the bank's accounts. Mainly, this relates to the borrower accounts, the asset classification, etc. That is the categorization of NPS. However, sometimes the RBI takes a macro industry level view, and even if the account is well performing in a particular bank, they may say no because it is not. There are issues with other banks. It is still an NPA. So this is where there is a certain discrepancy. This leads to the RBI coming out with divergence figures in the balance sheet of banks. It's not that the auditors have not seen these areas, but the auditors go by the rule-based approach. And RBI is also evolving its supervision and its regulation. So again, this is an evolving system. So we can understand that the demands from the auditors and from the bankers is really upping day by day. Part of it, the RBI can also be working with the benefit of hindsight. Since RBI audit under Section 35 happens almost months after the annual audit of the bank happens at the hands of the statutory auditors. But all this still, I think, is for the greater good of the banking industry and the economy. The understanding of each other's point of view is very important between the auditor, the RBI, and the bank. The RBI, after all, appoints the statutory auditors for the banks. But however, I think the intense focus that is coming from RBI has a history, is because of what happened in the banking sector in the last few years, especially the last decade, I can say. These last few years have been tumultuous both for the bankers and the auditors, not only in India, but also globally. High-profile bankruptcies like Ireland FS Satyam in India and Carillon in the UK, Wirecard very recently in Germany, all these have brought increased focus on the audit discipline. There are many issues with this. I know there is a lot going on in the press and in the media. There are issues like the big four firms are too big, or the undercurrents of conflicts of interest are leading to, these are all making the regulators move on separating the consulting function from the audit function. And these are the news items that are hogging the headlines. But I would today like to focus on the smaller companies and firms, basically the mid-corporates and the MSMEs. It was mentioned that these are the backbone of the Indian economy. These are the most vulnerable sections under the COVID pandemic. And so we need to really support them. And for supporting them, it is not only the bankers. We have been giving emergency loans. We have been following all the government initiatives to help them. But it's also to come from the other participants in the ecosystem. I have seen in my experience in the corporate lending space, I was also head of the largest mid-corporate branch in SBI in Mumbai. And I have seen that many of these firms with turnover running into thousands of crores sometimes, the auditor is totally someone who's totally unknown. It's not a very noted figure. And the payment to the, I used to look at what is the payment they make to the auditor in their financials. It would be 3 lakhs, 5 lakhs, very small paltry amount. I don't think any auditor who would do a very intense check of the company would be satisfied with that kind of a payment. So there is something, either it is name lending or it is the, just the rubber stamp that is being put, whatever. I think this is one thing that, we woke up and we are now looking at who is the auditor of the firm before we give a loan to the firm. I think that is the importance that auditors have. And when things go wrong and the bank tries to contact the auditor, it was very difficult to locate the auditor. In 2 or 3 instances, I sent my officers to find the auditor so that we can call him and ask him what is going on. But it was equally difficult to locate the auditor as it was difficult to locate the borrower. So there are issues. There were at least issues. This was about 10 years back, not now. So I can only relate from my experience there. Also, stock audits and all, auditors do stock audits. And I used to always call the stock auditor and discuss with him one-to-one. Because there are so many things that they will not put in the audit report, but when you meet them, they do give impression about the working of the company. That I found very, very important. The other problem I see in the MSME or the mid-corporate segment is the companies or the firms are so obsessed with the tax and tax management seems to be taking precedence over the growth of the company or scaling up of the company. And I'm sure they are urging auditors to keep the tax incidence low. And for that reason, the turnover is low. This ultimately hampers the scaling up. I think now with GST and other initiatives, hopefully such misplaced notions are done away with. As you all know, banks play a vital role as trustees of public funds, and we leverage these funds for responsible credit creation. Banks also have access to funds from RBI to direct lending to needy sectors of the economy. As bankers, when we finance companies, we depend a lot on the auditor's statements and remarks and their remarks in the financial statements. We also entrust, when there is a project to be lent to, we entrust the techno-economic viability study to get expert advice. The technical part of it is done by empaneled technical advisors, but the viability generally is also done by an auditor because the financial statements and the projections have to be vetted. And once we give the loan, we entrust the monitoring of the end use of funds again to concurrent auditors. And there is now an agency for specialized monitoring that is being set up for every loan that is beyond 250 crores. With all these auditors, why I'm saying this is auditors are, we depend on the auditor's opinion at every stage of the lending and monitoring the loan. But however, when things go wrong, we again call the auditor to carry out a forensic audit and tell us what went wrong and how diversion of funds, if any, has happened. A CA's signature goes with a lot of respect, and at the same time, it's a huge responsibility. Apart from the institute prescribed norms, I suggest that auditors look at the general governance standards in the company. Since you are interacting with the company and their people at various levels, you would definitely be able to get a view on the governance standards and the practices in that company. And that would just definitely give early warning signals to the auditor and through the auditor to the banker. That same request we make of the rating agencies, of the valuation firms, a host of players in the ecosystem that we work with and depend on to take informed decisions. If the information is either half-baked or conceals more than it reveals, then ultimately the banker is left holding the baby. There has been a lot of criticism of banks and bankers for the NPA situation in the last decade. I don't say all of it is undeserved, some of it is, but everywhere there were also outside agencies involved for handling parts of due diligence. So that has to be acknowledged. Now from the Indian Bank experience, it was mentioned that yes, amalgamation happened, and amalgamation happened under the most, I think, stressful circumstances. In my entire career of SBI and these last 2 years in Indian Bank, I have never faced I faced many challenging situations, but this takes the cake. In terms of, giving the amalgamation announcement, the government also did not know, obviously, when they made the announcement last August end and said by 1st April 2020, Allahabad Bank, which we knew nothing of, actually, it is in the north and the east, and Indian Bank is in south and west. That will amalgamate with, it has to amalgamate with Indian Bank with effect from 1st April 2020, and you better start going. So we did that. We immediately, started strategizing, and my assessment was that it would be the most challenging items would be HR, because the culture was totally different between the two banks, and IT. IT, of course, because it is the same platform, but still there were issues with the customization at both levels. Of course, financials was I thought the easier part would be the financials, because everything is well structured. There are audits that side, there are audits this side. And what transpired was that the audit of the financial statements, the financial due diligence, the fixing of the share swap ratio, all this was a first time learning for me also. And I really have to thank all our auditors and the auditors involved in this entire process, both from Allahabad Bank side and Indian Bank side, that they also took it as a challenge. And there were any number of meetings on the VCs and steering committees, everything. First we tried to do physically as much as possible, but come the lockdown in March, we had to jettison all those plans and take a pause and then start reworking. And meanwhile, COVID had COVID lockdown and all were announced. We didn't know really, how to go about that. Was end March, and we were to come out with the first balance sheet on 1st April, the combined balance sheet, the opening balance sheet. But it is to the credit of the bank staff and the auditors that the merger was very smooth and frictionless for the customers, for the employees, and I should say all the stakeholders. While the rest of the amalgamation story is equally interesting, but I will, for the present audience, I will briefly touch upon the key role the various auditors played in the process. As I mentioned, it was just 7 months that were given to for the amalgamation. The principal challenge was how to effectively integrate across multiple channels and with the tight timeline. And the people who were to do this amalgamation were also running the bank. And it was business as usual, because this was a declared essential service, and all the branches, all the ATMs, everything had to be kept running. And in fact, there was more pressure because there was a direct benefit transfer declared by the government. There was a guaranteed emergency credit line for MSMEs, which we had to disburse through the branches. And the branch staff themselves were totally scared, because you don't know when anyone will get impacted. That was the early time of COVID. It was really, I should say, a perfect storm. But somehow we waded through it, and we could manage the things. I think it was because of pre-planning. Our auditors, with their competencies, really held our hand through this entire journey. because the rest of it can happen today or tomorrow, but audit and the balance sheet has to happen on a certain date and within a certain timeline, and with the accuracy that RBI or the institute or the banks demand. And this was something that we realized the immensity of that project when we saw the financial due diligence and the swap ratio, all this working out. There was also the need that the first day balance sheet should be, the general ledger has to be harmonized, the various accounts have to be brought together. And there were a lot of VCs between Indian bank auditors and Allahabad bank auditors to get the harmonization in place. The financial due diligence, the valuation, the swap ratio, all this was handled through first the financial due diligence through KPMG. They did the current state assessment of the business processes. Then there was the exact information on the reporting systems, the structures, etc. of the amalgamating bank. The accounting due diligence effectively addressed the key issues of earnings quality, asset quality, potential for unrecorded or understated liabilities, financial statement project evaluation, cash flows, concerns, and fraud due diligence. So we were able to get a clear picture on the loan loss methodology of the other bank, the controls, if any, that were missing, the compatibility of the legacy and outsourced systems. So a risk-based approach during pre-amalgamation focused on identifying risks helped us make out a particular roadmap for the whole process to play out. Similarly, control issues and deficiencies that were associated with the bank were addressed during the pre-amalgamation stage itself. That helped us bring a lot of harmonization even before the D-Day. So the next challenge before this was the estimating the value of both the banks. This is not like a merger and M&A of a regular private sector. That has its own challenges, but this has its own challenges, since what was given was that no employee can be terminated. We have to take the entire thing. We have to give the best of the perks and salaries to both. We have to, so it is the better of the two in many cases. And also you have to, not disturb the people too much. That was more from our side. We didn't want to disturb and disrupt branches during COVID period. So most of the transfers were very limited during this year. So with all this, it was almost like swimming with your hands tied at your back. Despite all that, I think thanks again to the auditors, to the various firms that were involved. We got through the process. It was the swap ratio, I believe, was arrived at with it was equitable and it was fair and it was reasonable, so it was accepted. The presence of an audit firm gave a lot of authenticity to the whole process of amalgamation. I can see it again and again from the board remarks. When they interact with statutory auditors, they get so much comfort. The day one of the amalgamation was a huge success. And because we were able to generate the combined entity balance sheet on the first day without any hassles, and all regulatory reporting was adhered to. Then we had the quarterly audits immediately after that, June and then September. And there was no way auditors could do the audits like they used to do earlier, go to all those branches and physically examine the vouchers or the books. So we arranged offline audits through so many branches, giving them access to the audit module. But I should again say that the auditors were in step with us. They understood our requirements and the way they also guided us on how to provide information, because the first, especially June, was very difficult. Both the IT integration had not happened, and so both the banks were giving different reports in different formats, and it was the auditor who had to sit and really reconcile both and come out with but we did it in record time. Never did Indian Bank come out with results within 3 weeks. It's both June and September we could do that. And that is something I think digital and our auditors are really to be complimented for that. Despite the time lag involved in a remote audit, I think the time that we could save because of lack of travel and all that, I think this is the future of audit. Offsite audit, centralized audit, that would help the banks also, instead of, that would standardize the systems also. We also now have instituted, at the suggestion of our principal auditor, a kickoff meet with the auditors a month before the quarterly closing. because they come out with a lot of observations in the not only in the long form audit report, but also during the quarterly audit. And these things normally remain until the next audit. So we are now having a mid-course review so that the management also understands what are still pending from the bank side. And these expectations from both sides are set realistically. So all of us are on the same page as far as the next quarter audit is concerned. So this, I think, has been the main learning for us from the auditors for the amalgamation. They were true partners in progress. And I thank the entire fraternity for all the culture that has been instituted in the auditors. That, you know, when things, like you said, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. So that you mentioned about Mr. Jain, but I'm sure it is true of the entire community and also of the bankers. I mean, that has been proved. I think I'll just go back to nostalgia. I fondly recollect the discussions I, as a first-time branch manager, used to have with the branch auditors in understanding the complex jargon. And even today, I'm in touch with some of the auditors who were auditing my branches at that time. And the kind of, I can ask them anything, they will clarify. And there is so much trust and respect for each other, which I think is invaluable. I extend my sincere thanks to SIRC of ICAI for conferring this honor of sharing my thoughts. And I have no hesitation in saying that as knowledge partners, all of us working together, we can unleash the financial power of India, and so that it may grow in a responsible and sustainable way. Thank you very much.
For want of time, we have time for just one question. CA Babu Abraham, sir, could I request you to come forward with one question for our speaker, please?
Madam, what is, according to you, what is the future of the banking industry in the country? Is it in the safe hands?
I think the auditors should say that. Whether it's in safe hands, but more so, I think the industry, you mentioned FSR of the RBI, July FSR report. I think that was before the, COVID actually was managed well in India. That was too, I should say, too pessimistic, because moratorium or even the restructuring did not pan out to the extent, did not pan out as bad as the report expected. Things have been looking up, and then even MSMEs or retail. Now today there is a restructuring announced by RBI. I don't see so many MSMEs or retail coming for restructuring, and the demand collection figures have improved across the banks, not just Indian Bank. You mentioned the asset quality is good, and I think it's good even taking notional NPAs into account. So it's not like, and at least for once, you can't blame the banks for any NPA this time. So it's COVID, it is more about COVID. And banks have been able to raise capital. We ourselves raised capital. Stress tests are being done. And I don't see that kind of a pessimism. I think there is a silver lining. Economy is picking up. The government and RBI both are taking all necessary steps. And come 2021 and 22, I'm sure things will look up. Yes, there will be stress in Q3 and Q4, but banks are in a much better position thanks to the regulatory and government recapitalization also and amalgamation also. Now, so many weak banks have disappeared. Today Indian Bank won't have to look to the government for capital. So I think that itself is a proven point about the rationale. So I think we are on yes, banks are in safe hands. I don't want to say anything otherwise, but it is in safe hands, and with good auditors, it will be even safer.
That's a great confidence building response for the stakeholders, especially the depositors across the country. Many of them are with us today.
Yeah, ma'am, I would like to supplement what Babu sir said. With the mergers coming and the number of banks going down, is it good or bad, and how good or bad it is?
I think it's not just about the number, it is about the quality of the banks and the bandwidth of the regulator and the government also. If the government is to keep on recapitalizing, and all the banks, if you see, previously they had their niche markets, but slowly all the PSBs started looking like each other. I mean, everyone is doing corporate, everyone is doing retail, everyone is doing MSME. So is it for a shareholder like the government, which has maximum shares in all the shareholding, it doesn't really make sense to have the same kind of companies across the country. So some amalgamation, so that few bigger banks are there. But that doesn't mean we don't need more banks. I think the country is underpenetrated as far as banking is concerned. We need many more banks, but banks that will be very digitally savvy and also reach the last mile. There is enough growth in India for any number of banks to be accommodated, but they should be healthy and they should be of good quality. So both make sense. Reducing the amalgamations and opening new banks, both make very good sense.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for taking time, especially on a Sunday, to enlighten us and share your views with us. Thank you for bringing out the multifaceted nature of our chartered accountancy profession. We are sure chartered accountants will continue to strive and play an impactful role in banking and have a meaningful and better working relationship with the banking professionals as well. Thank you for being with us on this Sunday afternoon, ma'am. We wish you a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much.